Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome into the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest running and nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology. Thank you for joining us, everyone. I'm your host, Ben Crossman, and I hope all of you are having a great day because as we kick things off here, we have a wonderful show planned for you where in the second part of the program, tons and tons of computer and technology news. And, a lot of stories that we should really get to. I don't know what happened to the Supreme Court, but they are pumping out these court cases like crazy. And one of them actually has to do with podcasting. And, depending on which way that went, it would have made podcasting not illegal, but much harder to do. And luckily there was a good outcome for that. But we have that story. We have more. If you didn't know, Apple is doing self-driving cars. Fun fact, they have about 50 on the road now. And, just interesting stories. Definitely want to stick around for that. So, but that's in the second part of the program. In the first part, we are going to be talking to a company about big data and big data virtualization and, just trying to find the best way to really convey data sets. It's not an easy thing to do when you're talking about, thousands or millions of data points. And, hey, this company, they have a pretty unique solution to do just that. So we will be talking to QuantumViz in just a moment. But before we get started, a couple of things, including computeramerica.com. That's where you'll find everything and anything having to do with today's show. So be that a link to our guest website, be that any articles or videos that we show on the program, you can, of course, check it out and catch any of the archives, catch the podcast, and catch the live video stream brought to you by OWC. And be sure to catch the social media contest brought to you by Logitech. So, with all that being said, why don't we go ahead and just get rolling here? So, joining us today for an interview and talk about QuantumViz, I think is the best person to to kind of convey what they do and how they do it, is the co-founder and CEO of the company, Mr. Richard Sheng. So, Richard, thank you for coming on Computer America.
Thanks for having me.
Our pleasure, our pleasure. So, why don't we go ahead and get a bit of a background on QuantumViz because a lot of the words that I just kind of threw out there, they haven't really existed in, I'm not sure about the corporate space, but for the consumer space, big data virtualization, virtual reality, blah, 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 that hasn't been out for more than 5-10 years. So, how'd you even decide to come up with this company and what is your background? Because this is pretty new stuff.
Yeah, no, thanks for asking. So just a bit about the company. QuantumViz helps companies make sense of their big data. And the way we do that is by providing immersive data visualizations. And the users can view that using 3D, AR, or VR. So with VR, you're completely immersed in your data visualization. But really, fundamentally, the value is using a 360-degree space and basically an infinite space. You can actually now really view all of your data in a much more immersive way. And you can actually drill down and show these microclusters and relationships in a way that 2D canvases cannot allow you to do today. So that's really what we're trying to tackle. In terms of how this started, and I guess maybe I'll give you a bit of my background.
Sure.
I have over 8 years of experience kind of being that in the data science and data visualization world. My role has always been that translator, though, for data scientists to our executives. And the way I did that was by building data visualizations for clients like Disney, FedEx, Altria, etc. And what we found is, the visualization was always the key to engaging non-technical business stakeholders. And that's why these dashboards and business intelligence tools have become so prevalent. Fortunately, though, as many people are aware, there's more and more data being created every single day. I think the latest stats is there's something like 2.5 quintillion bytes of data. I can't even say that properly.
Wow.
Created every single day. And with the advent of machine learning and AI, the kind of analysis that data scientists are doing now is a lot more sophisticated. So you're able to now answer and ask much bigger questions. So as an example, Fred Wilson, who's a venture capitalist at Union Square Venture, on his blog a few weeks back, he shared a relationship graph of his 600,000 Twitter followers. And each node basically represented a Twitter handle, and there was a bunch of lines that show how they're all connected to each other. But as you can imagine, on an email or on a piece of paper, it basically looked like a green blob, right? It was just too much data. And so that's really what inspired one of the inspirations for us on like why this is needed, why you need to really essentially break that canvas and view that data set in a broader space, which is what we're providing.
Right. And I guess you kind of explained it there, talking about being able to convey, some of these data sets to people who maybe are not data scientists. But to be fair, I think that even data scientists, they may be a breed of their own, but even they can't take, what would you say, 14 quintillion data points and put them all together in their head. I mean, what kind of brought about this problem? Was this a problem about, was this a problem born from the fact that everything has a sensor and it's only getting more so that way, and it's just like this is a solution brought about by a problem of technology, that technology has just gotten to this point that we need QuantumViz and we need people and companies such as yourself?
Yeah, no, thanks for asking that. And absolutely. So let me give you an example. What actually inspired us to view the data this way was I was doing a project which I took the deep learning class at NYC Data Science Academy. So they're essentially like an academy that's focused on training data scientists, and they offered a AI/deep learning class that I was super excited about. And so one of my projects that I did for that class was to essentially scrape the internet. And I just started with even a subset, which was still about 160,000 websites. And I was using my deep learning model or AI model to sort through all these websites using a natural language processing algorithm. And what I was hoping to find were these kind of micro clusters of websites. And the way that I was thinking I could use it was within the microcluster. What I was hoping to, it would basically form similar websites or find similar websites. And the idea being, if one of my existing clients had a website in one of these clusters, then all the other data points around it or websites around it would potentially be a lead. So I was going to use this as a means to do a lead generation project. Unfortunately, as any good data scientist, what we try to do is view the data set when we have the result. But as you can imagine, with 160,000 websites that I was trying to represent visually, it was basically impossible. Again, kind of like what I said earlier, in this case, I was actually viewing like a black blob on a piece of paper.
Right.
So what we ended up doing was bring it into this 360 environment where we now represented each of the websites as a red sphere, where you can even interact with each of those spheres and have the actual underlying website rendered next to it. And what you were looking for was essentially these microclusters, where now at the scale, I can actually see them. And so I can see, oh, maybe here's a cluster of websites related to Brazil, or here's a cluster of websites related to sports, or cluster websites related to my existing customer. So that's really the inspiration for doing this. And this is why a lot of the data scientists that we've been speaking with who are doing similar analysis have run into similar challenges, could definitely leverage something like this.
So, and I guess the question is, was this only possible through virtual reality, augmented reality, things like this? I mean, why did you decide to pursue viewing data, with this kind of newish technology, as opposed to, maybe charts and graphs and PowerPoint slides? Why was VR and AR so appealing to you?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things there. The way that a lot of the data visualizations are good for today are, like you said, bar charts and things like that. And what they're really good at is viewing metrics, right? So if I wanted to see sales by different countries, I can show that, on a map or on a bar chart, and I can do that relatively easy, right? Metrics you can actually average or sum and whatnot. The types of visualizations that we're really good at that can't be handled with today's tools are representing the data as objects. So going back to the Fred Wilson one, right? Each data point here is actually a Twitter handle. And in my project, each data point is actually a website. So these are objects that are not metrics that you can just simply add. And more importantly, you want to be able to represent it spatially or in a graph format where you're really trying to understand the relationships between each of these data objects. So again, these are things where today's tools are horrible at. Now, to point out one thing, our solution works in just a 360 environment. And the way we kind of explain it is you can view it just using your computer, right? Your monitor becomes like a window into this 360 space. And you can still roam around and explore and find insights. But what VR allows you to do, which we've enabled for, is basically allows you to step through that window where you become fully immersed now in that space. And why that's extremely powerful is if you want to tell a data story, again, to that non-technical stakeholder, or you really want to humanize your data, or really just change that whole experience, that's what VR is really good at. And later on, we're going to be able to even project data onto, say, like a table, which will really help facilitate collaboration where you're all kind of looking at the same thing. And you can kind of have this mixed reality experience where you're looking at, objects in real life, but also superimpose your analytics on top of it.
Right, and just to be clear, when you say table, you're talking something in the nature of, let's just call a spade, Iron Man. Something that's kind of like a hologram that you could manipulate and interact with, above a surface. Something similar to that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're all, maybe unlike my older generation, we're still inspired by Minority Report, but
Right.
definitely, a lot of the newer movies out now, right? You have these holograms sort of floating above the space, and holograms do exist, and we can definitely enable it as well. But using a AR through your phone or a HoloLens, or something like that would be a little bit more easier to do for today.
Right.
But regardless, it's all different experiences for you to immerse yourself in your data.
Well, I was actually going to ask you about what hardware you actually work with, because you mentioned computer monitor, so that covers 100% of businesses out there today. But you have a video up on your website. We're actually watching it. Yay, Google Cache. But we were checking out your video, and I think I saw like the Google Dream VR headset, and there may have been like a Samsung one. What do you work with? Is it just any VR, kind of headset, or does it work better with, or do you, kind of specialize for maybe the Oculus Rift or maybe the Samsung Vive or the HTC Vive? I'm sorry.
So we're definitely agnostic. We're trying to make this as platform independent as we can, so that it allows you to scale out. But again, to your point, anyone today, any data scientist or a data analyst could use this by just having the viewer on their computer. And later on, if they really wanted to have that VR experience, they can also do that with whatever hardware they want.
So let's talk about some use cases. You mentioned that you can see relationships with different websites, and I did find that pretty cool that you could go in and actually view the website. I like how you kind of like leaned in where it was like a window, and you could lean out of the window and check out the entire website. Clusters and websites and traffic and things like that make perfect sense. But I think big data isn't just about websites. It's also about really everything from water usage, from the city size to average consumer trends and things like that. What are some of the better problems that you can foresee people would be interested in, kind of, as you said, humanize the data? What problems would QuantumViz really be good at, kind of helping with?
Yeah, so that's such a good question. So really, when one of the things that we're really good at is viewing massive graph type visualizations, and there's a lot of use cases for that. But there's really like three things people are trying to view. One is called pathfinding. So essentially, like what is that shortest distance from point A to point B, or how do you connect the dots to potentially detect, say, like a crime ring or fraud ring? The second is called centricity. So if you imagine all the lines coming from these nodes as representing even something like cryptocurrency movement or any kind of currency, and you're seeing a lot of lines coming from one particular node or individual, essentially that person is your whale, right? You can kind of use that to detect
Mm-hmm.
whales. And the last is kind of about community detection or cluster detection. Kind of the example that I just talked about earlier was clusters of websites, but you could also be clustering customers or clustering products, whatever it is. You're really trying to figure out what are the independent communities and what are the relationships that make them unique. So even in something like gene expressions or genomics in general, there's a lot of use where this kind of stuff is really useful for.
Right. And talk about virtual reality putting making an entire experience, make it really engrossing, makes perfect sense. Augmented reality is the idea that you have data overlaid on, hey, the real world, be it an office room, be it the streets, be it something else. Um, what is the point of, kind of capturing that? Because if you're just dealing with, people in boardrooms and data sets and blah, 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 what advances are there to be had to actually put, kind of data over everyday objects?
Yeah, so that's such a good question. So one of the things that we've actually seen already being in place today is essentially it's called like a 2.5D experience where you have a physical table that maybe has some terrain kind of actually built into the service, and then you have a projector that projects a visualization on top of it. So imagine having a map projected onto that, where now you can show different buildings in real time, track even like say drone movement. So one of the use cases that we've seen is say first responders, right? You're actually showing how maybe one building has a problem, and you're sending out these drones to capture that data right away, and that data gets relayed back in real time to ambulances or other first responders, so that by the time they get there, they can actually respond with the right equipment or the right staff, and really help save lives. And having that kind of actual projection in real time and that experience is something that this would be extremely powerful for. And for most boardroom cases, if you want to have just a projection of different charts and different experiences that you can essentially swipe through and have everyone kind of look at the same time, you can really facilitate that collaboration in a way that you're not able to today.
Right. So, and just to bring it down to an actual experience, I will say that one of my favorite examples of big data, kind of dealing with big data, was I think it was a Twitter account, and it would crawl everyone else's Twitter accounts, and it would look for things like it would look for indicators of illness. So mainly the flu, coughing, sneezing, don't feel well, feel crummy, woke up late, had to go get a flu shot or something like that. And it would crawl all over Twitter looking for these symptoms. And it would then kind of predict, because they're all geotagged, they would predict when certain parts of, let's say, New York City, they would get infected with the flu for the flu season, and it could actually kind of drill down all the way to an individual where you put your you put your age, you put your location, and it was able to predict when you were going to get the flu, because hey, we see it coming across the world, and contagions are contagions. It was a lot of fun, and it kind of humanized it to the point where saying, well, if I don't want to get the flu by next Thursday, I better go get a flu shot. And
Mm.
it was a really cool idea to use data in that way. So I give that example, but you probably have better ones. Do you have any, kind of one situation where you said that wasn't possible before, what we're doing, before what we're doing? Is there any really cool example of big data?
Yeah, so there's definitely a lot, right? Even at the beginning, you kind of mentioned, self-driving cars, right? Trying to think about that as a reality a few years ago, even just 2 years ago, really was not not that quite feasible, right? Being able to beat the chess masters of the world, right?
Right.
Definitely not something as comprehensible. Being able to have a real, most people have seen probably like Google's latest demonstration where they have their assistant call a hair salon in
Yeah.
real time and actually be able to have that dialogue just like a human being and adapt it based on the context of what the conversation was like to be able to schedule that. Right? That's incomprehensible as of just a few years ago. And this is really the convergence of big data as well as deep learning and other machine learning techniques that have been adapted and democratized now to a point where a lot of corporations, I think Forbes, we had an article recently saying, about 80% of companies now have to some extent or other adopted machine learning. But that's only going to increase, and more of it's going to be productionized. A lot of these companies are trying to figure out how to really compete, right, with the Googles and Facebooks of the world, and that's why they're going to need to look at and ask harder questions of the data sets they have. I think that's why our visualization, again, is going to be extremely helpful for them to find insights and share that relationships to the non-technical kind of audience.
So tell us where you're at with QuantumViz on just kind of a business level. Are you guys looking for companies to work with and partner with? Are you opening your doors to every mom and pop out there and being like, hey, we have like 100 customers and this would be great to know when our peak times are, something like that? I mean, what, just as a company, QuantumViz, what are your goals for kind of going forward?
Yeah, so it kind of goes back to the prior point where we're extremely helpful with is when you have massive data sets and where each of that data isn't, a metric, right? It's an object that you need to kind of represent spatially or represent the relationships between. Again, it could be people like customers, it could be, social media accounts or any kind of document that's like unstructured. So where we can really help our companies that really have that massive data sets and are trying to find value in it and have been struggling to do so or need to visualize it in a way that they haven't been able to today. So I would say any company that's out there that has that kind of problem, we would love to speak with. So if they want to, they can email me directly at richard@quantumviz.com. It's richard@quantumviz.com. So again, that's really what we're looking for.
All right, yeah, and we do have a link to your website, which we talked about before the show, but we do have a link to that in the show notes. And yeah, if people want to find out more, they can of course head on over there. But I think that unless we kind of skipped over anything, it's a very open-ended kind of field that you're breaking into, and it's something that, like you said just a couple of years ago, what we're kind of working on today, our goals today, weren't even feasible a couple of years ago. So I think that you really found a niche that not many people have experience in. And hey, I want to say thank you so much for coming on the show. This has been exciting.
Yeah, and I just really want to thank you for allowing me to come on the show, as well as NYC Data Science Academy that provided me the knowledge and training to get to this state. So again, thank you.
I think we had them on the show like less than a year ago. They're a great organization. So yeah,
Absolutely.
So glad to see that a lot of their efforts are paying off. And everyone, Richard Sheng, he is the co-founder and CEO of QuantumViz. And Richard, again, until next time, thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much.
All right, have a
Take
great
care.
one. Bye-bye. All right, everyone. So there he goes. And if you want to find out more about QuantumViz, unfortunately, their website is currently down. I blame all of you. But it should be back up and running before long. So QuantumViz.com. You can check that out. Very, very simple. So with let's go ahead and switch on over to computer and technology news. And this is a segment brought to you by OWC, great sponsors of Computer America. They do great things with within the Apple ecosystem, but hey, right now I'm using one of their external storage devices, and it's on a Windows machine, so they make a lot of great products, and definitely go check them out. But for now, computer and technology news. Here we go. All right. So our first story, the first, the tippy top one that we're going to do is this one because it kind of affects Computer America, where we are a live radio show. We definitely hold pride in that, in that title. But hey, more and more we realize that live radio is just one part of bringing entertainment to all of you. It's also about podcasts. Podcast is the idea that, luckily just doing what we do, it translated very nicely, but time shifting entertainment has grown substantially and will only continue to grow. If you don't check out a lot of podcasts, highly recommend that you do. There's a lot of very interesting ones out there, a lot of niche ones out there you could check out. But at any rate, there was a court case in front of the Supreme Court that may have put the kibosh on podcasting altogether, which would have really just decimated the entire industry. And this coming to us from Ars Technica, where the Supreme Court declines to hear podcasting patent case, handing win to the Electronic Frontier Foundation. So the EFF, if you don't know them, they do a lot of work for kind of like personal liberties for a cyber citizen. They kind of protect your as they say, they protect your digital rights, as a member of the internet. So they do a lot of good work, and hey, looks like they had a win this time, where they said that on Monday, the Supreme Court of the United States declined to hear the case of Personal Audio versus Electronic Frontier Foundation. And in short, the case is all said and done as far as it goes. So they said that as Ars reported back in August 2017, the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Federal Circuit affirmed the April 2015 Inter Partes Review ruling, a process that allows anyone to challenge a patent's validity at the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office. So essentially, Personal Audio, if you weren't keeping track, began sending legal demand letters to numerous podcasters and companies like Samsung in an attempt to cajole them into a licensing deal, lest they be slapped with a lawsuit. And they said that some of those were even successful, where Adam Carolla raised about $500,000 as part of a possible legal defense fund, and Carolla settled with Personal Audio, but it's unclear about how much money, if any, actually changed hands. So they essentially pulled out a patent that I think said something along the lines of recorded audio distributed through a third party that is, used for entertainment purposes. Like generally they patented that and were going after the biggest of the big fishes and trying to get them to pay them money. And as they said, sometimes it was enough to even make people stop doing what they were doing. So as Personal Audio began to gain more public attention, however, the Electronic Frontier Foundation stepped up to challenge the patent. And Personal Audio did not immediately respond to Ars Technica for a request. So they had a patent, essentially a patent troll, and they tried to get people to make deals with them. Went all the way to the Supreme Court, where the Supreme Court said, no, this is obviously, this is obviously a patent troll, so we're not even going to deal with it. So, hey, podcasts as an industry is safe for another day. Yay. That's good. So, all right, how about we start with this one? So we're going to have to start with this, and then we're going to come back to it. But this is something that we did a bit of research on here at Computer America when we wrote an article about it. But Kaspersky, you may have heard of them. They're one of the largest and most reputable, they're one of the largest and most reputable cyber security or definitions producing software companies out there. So they make their Kaspersky Labs. They make Kaspersky the anti-malware software. And yeah, following the latest government ban, Kaspersky is moving to Switzerland. So I guess it's just bad for business to be headquartered in Russia. So they're heading on over to Switzerland. So everyone, music means we're going to take a break. We'll be right back, and then more Computer America right after this. Stay tuned.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
800-215-4461. 800-215-4461. 800-215-4461. That's 800-215-4461.
We are all Brother Wolf. 10 years ago, a group of locals banded together to create positive change. We took animals into our homes, held adoption events at local retailers, and talked to the community about our mission to help build a no-kill Asheville. A decade later, we have achieved so many victories for animals in need. There's been so much progress, yet there's still so much to do. As part of our year-long celebration, we encourage you to become a member of our special Compassionate Circle program. With a monthly donation of $10 or more, you will have behind-the-scenes access to the work we are doing at Brother Wolf. Our goal is to reach 1,000 members because we receive no government funding. Working together, we can help build and sustain no-kill communities. Learn more at compassionatecircle.bwar.org. We are a 501c3 tax-deductible organization.
And welcome back to the Computer America Show. It is 32 minutes past the hour as we continue on here. And by the way, if you missed any part of the interview in the first part of the show, we talked to QuantumViz. They were a data visualization company. And yeah, you can hear them on the Computer America podcast, which is simply the live version of the show that you hear on IRN every single day, and is then distributed all over the internet to wherever podcasts are heard. And hey, don't worry about catching us live because, hey, we're more than happy if you catch us anytime, anywhere. So catch us there. And in the meantime, we are doing computer and technology news. So we are going to go ahead and jump into this article about Kaspersky and Kaspersky Labs and how they are reportedly moving to, Switzerland. Check that out. So they're saying that things are going from bad to worse at Kaspersky Labs, the Russian antivirus software developer, where the Dutch government, the Dutch government says it's planning to phase out the use of the software as a precautionary measure and is proactively suggesting other companies do the same. So we're seeing now the Dutch government taking the same stance as the American government. So the Justice Minister, Ferdinand Grapperhaus, I apologize, Ferdinand, if I said that wrong, said that the move was made to protect against Russian offensive cyber program that targets, among others, the Netherlands and Dutch interests. There you go. And he also noted that Moscow-based Kaspersky could be obliged to comply with Russian state interest because of Russian law it's subject to. Okay, could be that. And so they said that the news follows a federal U.S. government ban for the software enacted last year, in which arguably set in motion similar decisions from other quarters, where the UK's cybersecurity chief was warned the government against Kaspersky, and Twitter has banned the company from advertising on social media platform. Even Best Buy has taken a stand, pulling Kaspersky products from its shelves. Again, most of this simply because the US government said, hey, we don't trust them because they're named a Russian name. But no actual legal action has been taken against them. It's been interesting. So Kaspersky, for its part, has repeatedly denied any involvement with the Russian government, and in a bid to clear its name, offered up its source code, testifying in front of Congress, and is even talking to the U.S. government to court to have its side of the story heard. Really, it's Kaspersky Labs is on the back foot here when you're fighting something like you're a puppet for the Russian government. It's not that it's hard to fight that because they're doing everything in their power. It's just hard to find people sympathetic to you. So its latest effort will see its move its data centers to an entirely neutral location. And when you think neutral, what do you think? You think 7 because 7 is neutral. No, you think Switzerland. Switzerland is the most neutral, chocolatey, neutral place that you could think of. And they said that the company says it plans to relocate its data storage and processing facilities for users in Europe, North America, Singapore, Australia, Japan, and South Korea to a new facility in Zurich next year, which is going to cost the company about $16 million. So this is a $16 million comfort blanket, security blanket. That's what that is. So they said that this so-called transparency center will be the first of several that the company intends to build worldwide. So as part of the announcement, Anton Shingarev, Vice President of Public Affairs at Kaspersky Labs, said that the allegations we face are wrong and there is no evidence. Still, the allegations are there. We need to show the customer we are taking them seriously and address them. Whether this will be enough, well, who's to say? But Kaspersky Labs, because of their Russian origin, because of their Russian name, they are now on the defensive for whether or not they are completely and utterly a tool for the Russian government. So, yeah, it's a rough life. It's a rough life to have to deal with that, and it's hard to hear one of the most trusted names in anti-malware is being tarred and feathered because Kaspersky has definitely been out there for that long. But at either rate, we're going to go ahead and drop that one and move on to the next story. So let's see. So let's go ahead and talk about Facebook. So if you've been living under a rock, then you should know that Facebook has users. They have a lot of users. They have, many, many billions of active monthly users. I think they just about hit 2 billion active monthly users. So congratulations to them. It's pretty darn cool. But fake profiles cause just as much turmoil as anyone else on the platform. And that's why we're now heading over to this article from The Guardian talking about, and by the way, Alex Hearn and Olivia Solon, saying that Facebook closed 583 million fake accounts in the first 3 months of 2018. Not half bad. And they said that they took moderation action against 1.5 billion accounts and posts which violated its community standards in the first 3 months of 2018. And this is something that the company has revealed, where in its first quarterly community standards enforcement report, Facebook said that the overwhelming majority of moderation action was against spam posts and fake accounts, where it took, check this out, 837 million pieces of spam and shut down a further 583 million accounts on the site in the first 3 months. But Facebook also moderated 2.5 million pieces of hate speech, 1.9 million pieces of terrorist propaganda, and 3.4 million pieces of graphic violence, and another 21 million pieces of, adult activity. Put it that way. Yeah. All in all, 1.5 billion accounts have had some way been moderated. That's impressive. And they said that this is the start of a journey and not the end of the journey, and we are trying to be as open as we can. And that was Richard Allen, Facebook's Vice President of Public Policy for Europe, the Middle East, and Africa, where the amount of content moderated by Facebook is influenced by both the company's ability to find and act on infringing material and the sheer quantity of items posted by users. Where, for instance, Alex Schultz, the company's vice president, said that the amount of content moderated for graphic violence almost tripled quarter on quarter. So, part of that may be, and by the way, there's a fun little graph here. Again, most of them are either spam or fake accounts, and then there's more for, a couple other kinds. But it really shows that it's not just about the content itself is being posted any more frequently than it used to be, which, hey, it might be some of that, but it's also along the lines of Facebook is getting better at identifying it and doing so automatically. Where, yes, they hired 10,000 people to work on and change these kinds of things. Those 10,000 people are not going to be as effective as a single machine learning algorithm. So it's getting better, and hey, Facebook really wanted to highlight and show that, and I think they're doing a pretty good job. Ask YouTube. It's not easy to catch everything right out of the gate. So he said that several categories of violating content outlined in Facebook's moderation are not included in the report, and they're saying that Facebook also managed to increase the amount of content taken down with new AI-based tools, which it used to flag and moderate content without needing individual users to flag it as suspicious. Those tools work particularly well for content such as fake accounts and spam, and the company said it managed to use the tools to find about 98.5% of fake accounts and shut them down in nearly 100% of the spam. So that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Yeah, and I think we're going to kind of leave it there because, it starts to get a little redundant. But if you thought Facebook wasn't really trying, these numbers, while it's not everything, they do show that Facebook at least is taking this pretty seriously. You don't rack up those kinds of numbers if you aren't taking them seriously. So very cool to see, and I hope that they make it better as time goes on. So there's that one, and then let's see. Let's do something with some new technology. So I found this one hilarious. There was a situation with Apple's last couple generation of iPhones, which is where they took out the 3.5 millimeter headphone jack, a little hole that lets you put any standard headphone from the past 25 years into your phone and lets you listen to things. Just that simple. It was a great standard. A lot of people liked it. But then again, a lot of people moved on with their lives because they said, hey, who really cares? They sell these fancy $150, $160 pair of Apple AirPods. Let's just buy those instead. Well, this article just goes to show that some people just can't drop it. And that's pretty cool. Where a company called AirFly, or at least a product called AirFly, is now available. And yeah, this is one for everyone out there who goes kicking and screaming into the future, where AirFly connects your your AirPods to anything with a headphone jack. And you can see it right there if you're watching the video portion. If you aren't, think of a matchbook. Yeah, about a matchbook, and it has one cord coming out of it, which would be your 3.5 millimeter headphone jack, and that's it. I'm assuming it catches the Bluetooth signal from any device and retransmits it and lets you plug in a headphone. Pretty simple piece of technology. So they said it's perfect for in-flight entertainment, gym treadmills, and more. So Apple's AirPods are apparently a hit, but they're not perfect. And one of the major drawbacks of iPhone's wireless headphones is the fact that they're wireless and they're not really compatible with anything that doesn't have Bluetooth. Again, that's where the 3.5 millimeter headphone jack comes in. When something's the standard for that long, everything is compatible with it. So, a company called 12 South, which has a reputation for making attractive, smart Apple peripherals, thinks it solved the issue with AirFly. And they say that the dongle ensures that your AirPods are now compatible with pretty much anything that has the headphone jack. And as you might expect, the AirFly was made for in-flight entertainment. So think airplanes. Let's see. So let's go ahead and skip a bit here, saying that the dongle, while still not the most elegant solution, ensures your favorite Bluetooth headphones can work with older technology lacking wireless connectivity. And they said that, the device is lightweight enough to hang from the utensil and strong enough for the headphone cable without much fear over it breaking. And one thing he still wanted to test out, however, is using the AirFly with the Nintendo Switch because, hey, that may just work. The biggest challenge might be remembering how to tether AirPods to something other than your iPhone, where fortunately 12 South provides a simple manual to ensure that you're linking the earphones correctly. So, he said that there's something else worth noting. You'll have to resync AirPods to your phone once you're done using them with the AirFly, but that at least gave him something to do while he waited for his baggage. So, again, he seemed to like it. This is something that a very small subset of people are going to say, wow, finally. Glad that they finally brought it out. Pretty cool idea. Pretty cool. I like it. I thought that, some people say, Apple, how dare you take away the headphone jack? And some people say, I could probably make some money off this. And AirFly apparently did. All right, so there's that one. Yeah, listen. We are currently live streaming the video portion of the show on twitch.tv. It's a lot of fun. You can join us over there. It's there's a chat room. You can talk to myself or any of the other participants, and we'd love to have you there. But I bring up Twitch not because of self-promotion, but because twitch.tv is owned by a company called Amazon. They are the company that probably delivers your toilet paper. They're probably the company that delivers your dog food. They are probably the company that delivers your weird Chinese plastic printed piece and anything else that you could possibly want right at that moment. Let's face it, they own the world. But over the past couple of years, whenever Amazon has wanted to open up a factory, a headquarters, a warehouse, it seriously caught national attention, where a warehouse in a particular state, it changes the entire local economy because, hey, you have 50,000 warehouse workers now, jobs up for grabs. You have, tons of new commerce coming in and out. You have to have entire ecosystems to support that kind of workforce and labor force. And Amazon knows what they're doing. They play that up as much as they can to the local media, and they get not only politicians but local governments and and citizens and more to really, bend over backwards, really put themselves in a bind to make sure Amazon chooses them as their location. So Amazon rules the world. They can change things for the better or for the worse. And, well, looks like they were putting up a struggle in Seattle, where this coming to us from Engadget, Miss Rachel England saying that Amazon resumes headquarter expansion after Seattle tax compromise. So they even got Seattle, who loves their taxes, to compromise on taxes. So Amazon has graciously resumed construction work in Seattle after the city council compromised on a controversial tax that will see the tech giant, which turned over $51 billion in sales. And again, that's sales, not profit, but still tons of commerce. During the last quarter alone, on the hook for $11 million annually. And they said that a sum that will be used to tackle the city's homelessness issue. Great. So let's see. They said that last month's tax proposal would charge employers in Seattle that make more than $20 million a year, $500 per employee, with the view to raising a total of $75 million to build affordable homes and fund services for the homeless. Well, for Amazon, which is currently undergoing major expansion plans in the city, including a new headquarters, this would add up to around $20 million per year. But the company threw its toys out of the pram and halted all construction work while the decision on the proposal was finalized. So you see there where obviously not a very sympathetic group that you can really look at. Anyone with more than $20 million a year in sales would have to pay an extra $500 per employee for these new services. And Amazon would probably be, well, I think in Seattle and I guess Washington. So Amazon for sure. I think Microsoft has an office there as well. So it would hit a number of companies, but Amazon is notorious for really, getting tax issues to go their way. So the city has now passed a smaller version of the head tax, which would only charge $275 per employee, or about $11 million in total for Amazon. And Amazon has since resumed building work, but isn't pleased and says it's questioning its future and therefore the creation of 7,000 jobs in Seattle because of the council's hostile approach. Yeah, that is usually the line that Amazon takes. It's, if you aren't letting them take your land for free and use the local area for free, you are hostile. And it's sad because, we've seen a number of cities, states, local, even, sometimes, I don't think on the federal level, I don't recall anything like that, but even on the state level, they'll throw every rule out of the book for what companies should be paying for if it means Amazon brings jobs to their area. So, Amazon isn't solely responsible for the increasing homelessness issue in Seattle, but the city's booming tech industry has driven up the cost of living overall, and city officials are struggling to find a balance between encouraging business growth and maintaining affordable housing. If you want to see that go completely bananas, go ahead and check out the real estate market in San Francisco. It's not a pretty sight. Not a pretty sight whatsoever. I mean, it makes the whole state look great. It makes it look like, wow, everyone is rich in California because they can afford homes that are, on average, $600,000. Not quite. Not quite. And it's a real issue, especially affordable housing. But the tax that Amazon takes issue with, but could very easily afford, is designed to mitigate the issue. And of course, the company sees it a different way, where in a statement released today, they said that the city does not have a revenue problem, it has a spending efficiency problem. We are highly uncertain with whether the city council's anti-business position or its spending inefficiency will change for the better. So again, casting doubt on the idea that they will resume business in Seattle, or at least stick around in Seattle. I think it's just Amazon. Long gone are the days we could call them the 800-pound gorilla in the room, and long are the days that we call them just the gorilla. They're now the company, and when they throw their weight around, it's scary. It's scary. They can do a lot of damage to the local economy. So, but they can also do a lot of damage if they resume to go unchecked. And where the balance is, obviously Amazon is going to state it's one way, and hey, again, we'll see what happens. But there you go. So there's that one. Let's see, we have time for a couple more stories. All right, how about this one? Let's talk about Apple. Speaking of large companies with a lot of cash on hand, and if you thought that any tech company or car company was left out of the self-driving autonomous car hullabaloo, well, you can cross Apple off of your list, where they said that more than 50 autonomous cars on the road are now owned and operated by Apple. Yes, the ones that make your iPhone are now making cars and have 50 of them testing themselves out. And the tech company's self-driving program continues to flourish, and that according to Kay Philippidis. There we go. And yeah, we're not going to spend too long on this article because unfortunately the show's almost over, but they said that Apple has more than doubled the number of its self-driving cars, and that is according to the California Department of Motor Vehicles. And since it attained a permit to test autonomous vehicles, Apple's fleet size has steadily risen from 3 cars to 27 in January, which is now 55 intelligent machines. And should the program remain on course, consumers could be chilling out in the driver's seat by 2019. Just 2 years away. Autonomous cars. I know that we talk about them a lot, but they're fast approaching. Don't think they aren't. So the intake is accompanied by 83 drivers who will be testing the vehicles. And at this stage, Apple hasn't been authorized to test self-driving cars independent of human supervision, where for that, the company will need to submit a separate permit to the DMV, and which is something, by the way, that the folks over at Waymo, of course, being the Google division of self-driving cars, and Waymo did that last month. So the DMV also revealed that a second unnamed company has requested approval to begin driverless testing, but hasn't parted with additional details just yet. So what we do know is that the autonomous car scene is heating up. Tesla and Drive.ai are lagging behind Apple, but fellow California native GM Cruise leads the pack with 104 vehicles with self-driving capabilities. So, hey, good enough spot to leave there, but self-driving cars, if you don't think they're coming, wait like 2 years and you're going to start to see them selectively, and then probably another 5 years from that, you're going to have access to one whenever you want it. It's going to be a great future to live in. So, folks, there's that, and the music means that we're just about done here for today's show. If you want to check out anything that we talked about here today, you can check out the show notes at computeramerica.com, or check out the podcast version of the show, iTunes, Google Play, SoundCloud, Spreaker, Blog Talk Radio, anywhere and everywhere. You can check us out there as well. here, and AI Certain. AI Certain will be joining us talking about artificial intelligence, but this is a program that was able to accurately predict all of the winners of the recent, the horse races, the famous ones. Either way, everyone, have a great day. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.